Hello you guys, welcome back to the channel. I am so excited for today's video because I am going to be showing you exactly how I make my sourdough bread. There is so much to learn when it comes to sourdough, and I have been making sourdough bread and working with sourdough for several years now, so I am feeling pretty confident in my abilities, but I definitely did not start out that way, and as I said, there's a lot to learn. So today I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes in making my infamous sourdough bread that I am not allowed to turn up to any family function without at this point. Sourdough bread is so much fun, and it really is a skill that is so exciting and rewarding to master. The sourdough that we're going to be making today is going to take a total of 3 days to make. So that's something to keep in mind when you are making sourdough bread, is that you need to have forward thinking. It's not something that you can necessarily just whip up. But sourdough bagels, which I plan to show you in a later video, do take a shorter amount of time. Sourdough bread is so good. You can make flavored bread, you can make plain, you can make multiple loaves, which is what we're going to be doing today. But the most important thing is the starter. The starter that I have been working with since the very beginning is very forgiving, and I know that that is not the case with all starters. So if you do not have a starter, there are many options. Number one, you can make your own. Number two, you could reach out to someone, family, friends, a colleague, Facebook Marketplace. There are so many different people that you could turn to and ask if you could have some of their starter. Or I do know that some people sell their starters on Etsy. I didn't personally go down that route, so I can't attest to how reliable it is, but I know that that is an option. I actually received my starter from a family member who got it from San Francisco. So I don't know a ton of the history about my own sourdough starter, but I know that she has never let me down, and she is super resilient and reliable. But I also use her a lot and feed her a lot, so it makes sense that she's really healthy and active. But today I'm going to show you how I set up and prep and feed my starter when I know that I'm going to be making sourdough bread. One thing that I do want to share is that when I started my own sourdough journey, I was influenced by one of my favorite YouTube creators and influencers whose name is Allison Bickerstaff. So I'm going to link her video below that I watched when I was starting out my own sourdough journey, as well as her blog post that I still reference today and all the time. So I'm really excited to share with you all the time and effort and energy that goes into sourdough bread. It really is the sweetest reward, and it's been so cool to master this skill. But I know that initially watching people's videos and things online, it can be very intimidating, and I will not lie, the first time that you watch a video like this or even attempt to make bread yourself, it is going to feel intimidating, and it is going to feel like, will this ever be second nature to me? But I promise you it will be. And now I'm really at the point where it's not perfect, but I could make sourdough in my sleep. It doesn't take a lot of thought for me, and I feel so lucky that this is a skill that I have chosen to pour into and master. Not that I've truly mastered it, but I do feel really confident in my sourdough abilities, and I want you to as well. So let's get into what I do when I know that I am going to use my sourdough starter, whether it's for baking or for bread or for bagels. It all starts the same. So we are going to feed and activate our sourdough starter together. So I've just taken out everything that I'm going to need to feed my starter. I absolutely would not be able to make sourdough bread if I did not have a scale, so that is a must-have. I have a bowl, I have some warm water, my bread flour, a spoon, and most importantly, my starter. So when I am not using my starter, I put it in the fridge. It's always in the fridge, and I take it out to feed it. I have just used this starter a couple days ago. So when you look at your sourdough starter, you'll be able to see some holes, and that's a good indication that your sourdough is alive. Mine is still pretty awake and alive because I just used her a couple days ago. So I am taking the sourdough starter out of the fridge a little bit later in the day because I know that it doesn't need that much time to wake up and activate. So right now it's around 5 o'clock. Typically, if I hadn't been using it for a little while, I might take it out at around 12 or 1 and let it rise throughout the afternoon and the evening, but it's not gonna need that much time. So right now, I'm just going to feed it. And what I'm gonna do is measure out 75 grams of sourdough starter and then 100 grams of bread flour and 100 grams of water. And I'm actually going to mix it in here, and then I'm just gonna set it off to the side and allow it to wake up and rise. And then tonight we're going to make our Levain. So I'm going to measure out 75 grams, and then whatever I have left over, you could either do any type of sourdough baking, you could also just throw it out, or you could transfer it into another jar that might have sourdough starter in it, depending on what you have, which is what I'm going to do today. So now I officially have 75 grams of sourdough starter, 100 grams of water, and 100 grams of bread flour. And I'm going to mix it up really well so that there's no bread flour or dry bits in there. And then I am going to set it off to the side to allow it to wake up and activate even more. I am making a little bit more than I usually would in terms of the grams because I am going to make sourdough bread, but I also know that I want to make sourdough bagels later on this week. So I want to have a lot of healthy starter waiting for me. So now that this is all nice and mixed up, I'll set it off to the side. I do notice that when I'm in a warmer temperature that the sourdough responds quicker. Right now it's a bit cool out, but it's still a good temperature, so it shouldn't take long. But if you are in a cooler climate or you are heavily air conditioned, you might notice that your sourdough is a little bit slower to activate. So that's just something to keep in mind when you are preparing it and activating it. So this is looking good. I'm now just gonna set it off to the side, not gonna worry about it until a couple hours later tonight before bed when we are going to make the Levain together. I'm just gonna leave this right here. As you can see, this elastic is where we are starting out in terms of where the sourdough is sitting right now. And then as it starts to activate, it's going to rise and grow. So gonna leave it right here, not going to touch it, pay attention to it, fiddle with it at all until later this evening, probably around 9 o'clock. Okay, it's a couple hours later, it's 9 o'clock. I'm gonna get ready to go to bed. But as you can see, the sourdough starter has almost tripled in that amount of time. So now we are going to make the Levain together before bed, and then we're going to leave it overnight. So you are going to need all of the same things: water, a bowl, scale, your bread flour, and we actually only need 27 grams of active bubbly starter, which you can see this is. She is alive, she is awake. 27 grams of this, and then we're gonna do 135 grams of both the water and the bread flour, and then we are going to mix. So that's what we're gonna do now. Then I'm going to set it on the counter overnight. I like to place either a damp cloth or paper towel over my Levain so that no fruit flies or anything gets into it, but that's just me. But we're gonna mix it up now, leave it overnight, and turn it into our loaf in the morning. Now we are just going to mix it up really nicely once again so that there's no bread flour or dry bits in this levain. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this back into the fridge because I am done using it. This is what it looks like. I'm just gonna set it over here for the night. Have a damp paper towel I'm just gonna put over it. And I'm gonna go to bed and we will see this in the morning. Good morning. This is what our levain is looking like this morning. So now I'm going to show you how we make the dough.
Are you helping?
Okay, so now that our levain is ready, we're gonna make the dough. So what we're gonna start with is 560 grams of filtered warm water. The way that you know that the levain is ready is if it floats on top of the water. So you don't need to measure the levain out at all. You just need to scoop it out however you want and make sure that it is floating on top of the water. So this one is floating perfectly. I'll show you what it looks like, but just try to get as much levain out as you can. If you are someone who doesn't appreciate mess or sticky projects, might I suggest not doing sourdough because it is messy, it is sticky, it gets all over your hands and your surfaces, but it is worth it if you're willing to bear it. And then you're gonna measure out 900 grams of bread flour. So you're gonna need quite a bit of bread flour. For the past couple of years, when I've been mixing the dough, I've been mixing it with my hands. This is a good way to do it because you can feel if there's any dry bits, but recently I've been using my KitchenAid. When you are mixing with your hands, you can be mixing for up to 10 minutes and your hands are gonna be absolutely coated in the bread dough. So this has been a nice alternative. I find that it scrapes up a lot of the dry bits really well, but either option works. So 900 grams of bread flour, then I'm gonna hook it up to my KitchenAid and I'm going to knead it until it becomes a dough. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is a nice dough consistency. It's very sticky. It's not getting on my hand though when I'm touching it. And you can see that all around here, there's no leftover flour or anything like that. So what I'm gonna do now is set this off to the side. This is my designated sourdough bread towel and I have wet it with warm water. And I'm gonna lay this over the bowl and set this aside for 45 minutes before we do our first stretch and fold. For the first stretch and fold, we are gonna need a concoction of 27 grams of salt and 20 grams of water. This is where I recruit my partner to do this because this is a lot of work. Nice! Okay, so now we're gonna do our first stretch and fold. I like to get my hand a little bit wet, but we are going to mix this salt and water mixture in during the first stretch and fold. So essentially what you're gonna do when you're doing a stretch and fold is I like to do 4 sides. So I'm pushing my hand down, grabbing the bottom, bringing it up and folding it over. And I'm gonna do that on all 4 sides. Okay, so now we've done all 4 sides and it's gonna look a little bit like this. And we are actually gonna do this 4 times. So this is number 1, we're gonna do it 4 times and we're gonna do 35 minutes in between. So first stretch and fold is done, salt and water mixture is evenly distributed in there. And now I'm going to take this cover it once again and set it off to the side for 35 minutes, and we will do our second, third, and last stretch and fold. Okay, so now we're gonna do our second stretch and fold. So just grabbing the one side, moving it over, grabbing this side, moving it over. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just making sure the dough gets stretched. And all four sides. Second stretch and fold is done. So now we have 2 more left. I'm gonna set this off to the side for another 35 minutes, do another one, and then we will do the last one together. Okay, now we are gonna do our final stretch and fold. So this is gonna be the 4th and the final time. So I'm gonna go through that same process again that I've already shown you of stretching and folding. And then after this, a lot of the hard work is done. So we're not gonna be stretching and folding anymore, and we're actually gonna put it off to the side and allow it to bulk ferment and rise. So now that that's over, I'm putting the wet towel back over it, and I'm gonna put it over here. I'm not gonna worry about it for a couple hours, anywhere to 5, 8, 10 hours, depending on your sourdough. And this is going to rise about 50%. So right now, this is where it's at, right here. But you're gonna see later that it's going to rise a significant amount, and it's actually gonna be probably on a level playing field as how big this bowl is. When I see that, I know that it's time to stop the fermentation process and start to shape the loaves and proof them, which we're gonna be doing later today. So today is definitely the most labor intensive day, but for right now, the stretch and folding process is complete. And now we are going to let it bulk ferment for the next couple hours, probably around 5 hours. It is 11:20 now, and I'll probably check on it around dinner time, and it'll probably be complete around then. So I'm gonna list a step-by-step for you in the description down below, but just to chat about this and recap, on day number 1, we activated and fed the starter, and then we made the levain and let that sit overnight. Today, which is the most labor-intensive day, we have created the sourdough dough. We have let that sit for 45 minutes, and then we moved into our stretch and fold cycle, which is 4 stretch and folds with 35-minute increments in between, and now we are letting it proof. Later today, once that is done, the fermentation process, we are going to shape the loaves together and then put them in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow is the fun part where we actually get to bake. So it is quite labor intensive on day number 2. This is definitely a day where you need to be home because for a couple of hours you are stretching and folding every 35 minutes. But the hardest part of creating the sourdough is officially behind us, and now we are moving on to more of the fun portion, which is shaping and scoring in the morning and then finally baking. So that's what we've done so far, and I will touch base with you later today when it is time to stop the fermentation process and shape our loaves. Okay, the time has come. It's around 6:30, and as you can see, the sourdough has raised a whole lot. So this is how you know that it is done. Now we are going to start to shape our loaves. I have some bread flour here to spread across the countertop, and then I also wanted to share that when I was starting out on my sourdough journey, I ordered this from Amazon, and it came with everything in it that I needed. I definitely need another one of these baskets, but I will order that in my own good time. But it came with one basket, and then it came with this knife, and then it came with this score, which we're gonna use in the morning, and then this as well. So this is wonderful, and I will link that down below. But what we are gonna do first is just grab some of this bread flour and spread it across the surface that you're gonna be using. And then we can set this off to the side. Now we are going to take the sourdough and go ahead and get it all out of the bowl. It's gonna be pretty sticky here, but it should all lump together quite nicely. And then once it's here, you will just grab your bench knife, and you can either make 2 loaves or you could make 3. I'm gonna make 2. And so you're gonna cut it just down the middle. The sourdough starter kit that I bought Also came with a plastic bench knife if you wanted to use that. But I have created 2 separate doughs here. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to shape. So what I like to do is almost the stretch and fold process again, where I am just creating a nice little ball. If you are going to add any sort of flavor into your sourdough, now would be the time to do it. So if you're adding garlic and cheese or cinnamon and raisin, you would just place it in and just start to fold it in as you're creating your loaf. So once you create this shape, you're gonna do a little bit of pulling. Now, I'm not an expert at this, but none of my loaves have ever turned out bad, but you can definitely see a notable difference between this loaf and this one that quite literally looks like a blob right now. So now we're gonna do the exact same thing with this one. Really doesn't have to be perfect. Something that I have found and that I'm very, very thankful for is that sourdough is very forgiving. So there's lots of room for error for the most part, especially with things like shaping and scoring, which doesn't have to be perfect by any means. So what I can already see is that this loaf is gonna be significantly bigger than this one. So I don't think you should do this, but I'm gonna just tear some of the sourdough off to make sure that we don't have like a massively bigger loaf than the other. And then I'll just kind of go through that shaping process again. So here's what's gonna happen now. These are both gonna be shaped properly, and then I'm gonna let them sit for 15 minutes. And then we're gonna do one final shaping, and then I'm gonna put them in their respective bowls or baskets so that they can proof overnight. So that means that all of our work for today is done, and tomorrow we will wake up and score and shape and bake them. So this is what they're both looking like. I'll give a little closer shot here, but we're gonna let them sit for 15 minutes and then just touch them up a little bit again, and then we will put them in the fridge. Okay, so our 15 minutes is up. So now we are gonna do one last shaping. So when you are folding in this way, you are naturally creating a little bit of a seam. If I flip this over, it's gonna be nice and round, but you can see here that this is where I've done a lot of the shaping. And so when we are putting it away to proof, we wanna make sure that the seam side is facing up. So I'm going to place this is now finished, and I'm gonna go ahead and put it into this bowl. And then I'm gonna be transferring that over to the fridge. And let's go ahead and do this last one. This one's already looking pretty good, but we're just gonna do some nice shaping here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if I was to sit here and say that every single time I've done sourdough, I've done my seam facing up and done everything right, I would 100% be lying, but sourdough is very forgiving. Can be hard to get these right because they're a bit sticky, but here we go. Now this is gonna go in here. So I am going to cover both of these. These are sourdough exclusive towels, if you will. So now I'm gonna place this over, and I'm also gonna place this over to proof in the fridge overnight. When you are proofing your bread, it can proof in the fridge anywhere from 8 to 36 hours. And I think after that, there is a risk of it over fermenting and spoiling. So for me, this is gonna be in the fridge. I mean, it's 7 o'clock now. I will probably bake this in 12 to 14 hours. So I'm just gonna create some space in the fridge, which is often the hardest part. And my work here is done. Everything is good. Put them in the fridge to proof for 12, 14, 16 hours, and then I will see you tomorrow morning to bake these. Good morning. It is officially day 3 of the sourdough process. So this morning we are going to take our sourdough out of the fridge, score it, and then bake it in the Dutch oven. So I'm going to take you step by step through the process of what I do on baking day, and then later today we get to enjoy the best part, which is eating the bread. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that you're gonna do is get your Dutch oven. You're gonna set your oven to 500, and you are gonna put your Dutch oven in so that it warms up with the oven.
Are you excited for sourdough bread? Beautiful girl.
The Dutch oven is almost done, so we're going to score our loaf. Just gonna put a piece of parchment paper down, and then we'll take our bread out, and I just like to flip it over like this. And then we're gonna score. I don't do anything too fancy when I'm scoring my loaf, but I'm probably just gonna do a little half moon, and then I'll place it into the Dutch oven. I never do anything too crazy or intricate, but I'm just doing 2 half moons here and a little bit of whatever you want to call these slits. If you want to see how to do a pumpkin, I did that in my most recent video before this one, and that was a lot of fun and turned out really well. But we are almost there, and I'm going to put this in the Dutch oven. Okay, so the oven is at 500, so I'm going to take this Dutch oven out and then turn the oven to 450. And then we're gonna take this lid off, the bread in. The Dutch oven is obviously very, very hot, so I just wear oven mitts all the time. So this is gonna go in at 450 with the lid on for 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes, I'm going to take the lid off and put it back in the oven for anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. So this is the first round. We will put this in and set the timer for 20 minutes. So we're gonna do the same process for this loaf. I'm gonna use this as a little bit of inspiration to make this one a little bit more fun. And what happens when you score is that when it bakes, it forms a nice little design on the top. So you don't have to do this, this is optional, but it just gives it a little bit more pizzazz. And people get really, really, really talented at scoring. I'm obviously not, but if it's something that you want to get better at, people are very, very advanced in their designs. So we'll just do a little something like that, and we will put it in the Dutch oven in a moment. So now we will take this out and put it back in for, I'm gonna do around 8 minutes. I like mine to still be a bit soft, but if you like it crustier, then you can leave it in for 10, but this is what it's looking like right now. It's looking good, so I'll just go ahead and put that in for another 8 minutes, and then it will be done. Okay, we are all done with our first loaf. Let's see how she's looking. Okay, incredible, looking good. I'll show you a close-up in a second. So I'm gonna take that out. Put the next one in just the exact same way. Put the lid on, and we're gonna go through that process again. So I'm gonna put it in for 20 minutes. And then I'll probably do a little bit less time next time because this one's looking a bit crispy, but let me show you. This is how loaf number 1 has turned out. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. Okay, here is the second loaf all done in her glory. They both look absolutely amazing. The process is complete. So now all that needs to be done is for these loaves to sit for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, and then you can cut into them and enjoy them, but they look so great. And just like that, our sourdough journey has come to an end. just to recap, on day number 1, we activated and fed the starter, and then we made the Levain and let that sit overnight. On day number 2, we created the sourdough dough. We did our stretch and fold process. And then later on that day, we created and shaped our loaves and put them in the fridge. And then on day number 3, this morning, we took them out, we scored them, we designed them, and then we baked them. And then later today, we get to enjoy them. So I hope that you learned a lot from this video. As I mentioned at the start of the video, when you watch a video or a tutorial like this, it can seem really, really intimidating. And the first time that you do it, it's absolutely going to be, but after you do it time and time again, it's just like anything else when building a skill or a habit, you're going to get the hang of it. So that was definitely my experience. And as you can probably see, I'm not a sourdough expert. I've been doing this for years and I feel confident in my abilities, but I'm not a sourdough expert. I don't know everything that there is to know about sourdough. I am not a brilliant scorer, but I have made hundreds and hundreds of breads and bagels, and I've actually never had a problem with any single one of them. They've all turned out really, really great and have been enjoyed by me and family, friends, loved ones time and time again. So maybe the first time that you try it, it's not gonna go perfectly, but the more you do it, the more you're going to perfect the skill and the craft. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to link a bunch of information and tips and links down in the description below to help you get started. But if you do get started, I would love to hear about it, whether you want to comment down below or send me a DM on Instagram. Sourdough is so much fun, and I will say that I often think about the fact that I'm so glad that I took up this skill, because it is truly a wonderful one for me and for everyone who gets to enjoy the bread. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Good luck on your sourdough journey.